Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back with yet another Viking Orations. Got another review for you today, and this time I'm going to be talking about the brand new album from the band Mamorlis, entitled Sturdy as an Oak, due out March 8th through the band themselves. Um, yeah, if you're not familiar with Mamorlis, they are a straight up heavy metal band from Portland, Oregon. Been around since 2016, featuring Alex Noche on drums and vocals. He is of the band Cryptic Edifice as well. You have Rooster Thunderbird on guitars. He also is in Cryptic Edifice. You have Matt Madani on guitars. He also plays in Crimson Altar, Ethereum, among others. And then finally, Brian Rush on bass. He is, of course, of Enigmatum. He's in Power Beast and about 20 million other bands. But yeah, this is the band's second full-length album. It is 6 tracks and just under 37 minutes in length. As I said, the album is going to be put out on CD by the band, limited to 100 copies. And I believe they are a French label called Cursed Ritual is going to be doing the cassettes. Those are also going to be limited to 100 copies. And, I've been a fan of this band since their debut album. Of course, I've been friends with Brian and Matt for a while, and I just really dug that debut album, and I was really surprised and excited to hear that they were coming out with a new one. And when they released the single, of course, I did a review for that because I really loved that song, and I was really pleasantly surprised when I was actually given a promo kit for this album, and I'm really appreciative of that because this is a great release in my opinion. The album kicks off with the single Wolfric the Wild, and if you saw my review, you know how much I love that song, and I was really anxious to see if the rest followed suit, and I was not disappointed. I mean, there's just some fantastic guitar work here from Matt and Rooster throughout this album. They mix the mid to fast-paced riffing with some kind of slower, heavier moments. It's really killer guitar solos, which I love the twin solo moments a la Judas Priest that occur at times throughout here. Really good drum production. While not super flashy in terms of what he does, there's some really solid patterns, rolls, and fills. I love the double bass work here, and Alex's cymbal work is just really well executed. He does some stuff on the cymbals that just sounds really freaking cool in my opinion. And speaking of Alex, vocally, again, he has that, bard telling an epic tale vibe to his delivery. And the more I listened to it, I finally figured out who he really reminded me of, and that is Matthias Blad of Falconer. In terms, because they kind of have that, dramatic, vocal delivery. I mean, he doesn't sound exactly like Matthias, but they definitely have the same kind of, delivery and approach to how they present their vocals, and they both got really strong voices, just really well done. I really love the backing vocals, which are kind of gang style vocals at times that occurred at various points through this album. Now you get to track number 3, the Kurgan, which, I mean, you can obviously tell what that's going to be about. He does this little like monologue type thing, and he utilizes a variety of voices and just kind of really shows his range as a vocalist. And he hits some really high notes on here as well, and I love the fact that that particular song ends with a quote from Highlander, from Kurgan himself, which, it wasn't a clip from the movie, but it's something that they did, basically doing their version of it, and I thought that sounded really cool because, I mean, obviously, Highlander is cool, Kurgan is cool, especially because, it's Clancy Brown. I mean, come on. Excuse me. And of course, as per usual, Brian's bass performance here is just absolutely crushing. He has that thick, heavy tone with that really techie vibe to it, and he's very prominent in the mix, so it's very easily heard throughout this album, which I love because I kept finding myself, only trying to listen to the guitar riffs and the vocal melodies and stuff like that, but I was really just drawn into his bass. I always am when I listen to anything that he's on because the man is just a beast on the bass, in my personal opinion. Some of the stuff that I picked out while listening to this. Track number 4, Over the Border. I love that doomy style riff about 20 seconds into the song after the opening where it's kind of like a solo vocal. part that kind of sounds like a drinking song, and I love the kind of group vocals they do at the end with this little melody. And then, like I said, then that doomy riff comes in, and the bass sounds really heavy and doomy as well in this song. The song does get more up tempo and more faster pace, but then at the 4:36 mark, it slows down again. It gets super heavy and doomy, with the instruments finally fading away, and then that opening vocal passage and lyrics return again at the 4:56 mark, and that's how the song ends, with that little group vocal melody. Loved how that song came about. And yeah, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to track number 2, Salomon Salamander. That is a really hard word to say. About 33 seconds into the song, I love this keyboard synth part that comes in, and honestly their use here, and honestly throughout the rest of the album, because the keyboards do make an appearance throughout the album, are just so well done. They're never overused, and they seem placed at the right moment, the right spot, just giving the song that little extra something that they need for that particular moment. Yeah, track number 5, the Glade. I just love that opening riff and how it combines with the bass. It just sounds so cool. And then that same heavy doomy riff from earlier kind of appears. You get, or it's not the exact same riff, but you get my point. It's the same kind of a nice heavy doomy riff. At the 4:18 mark, I love the guitar solo and how it turns into a duo solo a la Judas Priest at the 4:40 mark. I love how it sounds like they're playing the same notes, but yet just slightly different from each other. They just got this slightly different feel, but you can tell they're playing around the same kind of pattern. Finally, track number 6, the epic 11+ minute closing track, Journeys of Acquisition and Gore. Very, very cool synth intro to this song. It has this 80s video game, sci-fi film vibe to it, I think. Yet it turns dark and heavy at the 1:47 mark. At 2:14, there's this riff here that has this kind of Middle Eastern vibe. It kind of also reminded me a little bit of Painted Black by the Rolling Stones, which I'll just admit off the topic here, I'm not a huge fan of the Rolling Stones at all, but I do love that song. And then at the 2:41 mark, the guitars just get heavier and kind of business as usual for this, how it sounds throughout all this album. Then at 5:30 and again at the 5:57 mark, the keyboard synth section that comes in here, actually I felt could have easily come off of the album Moon Tower by Dan Swano, that legendary musician and producer. And then finally at the 10:34 mark, you hear this crack of thunder with this lone acoustic guitar riff that is soon accompanied by what sounds like a flute that gives it this folky medieval feel to it. And then you hear the sounds of these chains dragging as the instruments slowly fade out. And then suddenly at the 11:17 mark, you hear "fuck you" yelled to end the album, which it was just kind of like, wow, that came out of nowhere. But yeah, overall, I think this is a fantastic follow-up to the 2019 debut album. These guys have not only met my expectations for this album when I heard that it was announced, but they have honestly surpassed them. And I think this album is definitely a more cohesive album overall. It's really well written and executed with great guitar work, killer bass work, great vocals, and songs that are they're catchy, and you just really get into them, which is good. I mean, there's so many times I was just sitting there with my eyes closed listening to this, just really getting into the whole vibe of the album. And there's some really lengthy songs in here. Like I said, the closing track alone is over 11 minutes in length, but yet it's so well written. They're all really well written that you don't realize how long the song's been going on, because you're just so caught up in the moment. I mean, I am just really proud of what these guys have delivered, and I definitely look forward to seeing what's next for this band. Go check them out. I will leave a link down below so you can check out their single from this album and their previous album. Go secure a copy. They definitely deserve your support. I give this a solid 9 out of 10. That is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing. And until next time, stay brutal.